The finale of Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger is here and features some crazy cameos from events of the King's summer movie adventure. So before the show ends, it seems like now is the perfect time to talk about it. Hello everyone, it's thomasjujube, and before I talk all about the movie, be sure to let me know your thoughts on the Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger Adventure Heaven movie down in the comment section. And also don't forget, as mentioned, I will be reviewing the entire season of King-Ohger pretty soon, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the show overall, make sure you subscribe to the channel or check out my Patreon for some early access content all about it. Now, from what I've seen online, the reception towards Adventure Heaven has been pretty positive with the English-speaking audience, at least, because that's, I'm English speaking, those are the circles I'm a part of, and I have to agree with them. I think this was a really good Sentai movie. Like, the plot is pretty basic, it's just the King-Ohgers going to the underworld, but I love that they made it tie into Gira's coronation that actually happens in this. And while it would be a cool thing to see in the main show, it's not totally necessary since we saw his path to becoming a king, and he's just gonna get a crown put on his head. So I think it makes perfect sense to place that inside of the summer movie, because it makes the summer movie feel impactful, like, oh yeah, this is a movie level event and it ties into the main story, but you could also not watch the show and understand everything until the finale when the movie characters actually become relevant. Also, quick side tangent while I've brought that up, I literally watched this movie for this video like an hour before episode 49 of King-Ohger aired, and I watched it live. So I was already pretty hyped up on Reinil and Ivanica as these cool characters, and then they just show up in the actual show. Anyways, the movie is basic, but that's honestly a good thing. It breezes through everything at a really nice pace. There's not really any lulls in the action, and there's actually not much action, so it's just like the character moments. There's not much like negative space, I guess. I enjoyed how all the Rangers got a little moment with dead people, even though Gira is the main focus. Well, almost all of them. Jeremy is just not really in the movie, which is just, that's how all these Sentai movies are for some reason. I don't know why they just focus on the main 5 all the time, even though the 6 is active, but whatever. I think it's just especially weird with Jeremy in this one because he also has a dead person explicitly tied to his character, and we know there's some kind of interesting interaction they could have between the two of them in the underworld, and they just kind of, I guess it wouldn't have fit. It would have been too much to put in the movie, so he just stays above ground until the movie implies that he can travel to and from the land of the dead using spider webs. Yanma also doesn't have any interactions with the land of the dead, but like, I don't expect Yanma to have any interactions with dead people, and because like the whole movie he's trying to figure out how to escape because he doesn't even believe they're in a land of the dead. Rita's interactions are kind of weak because for them they're just CG nonsense floating around them, and I appreciate that they gave them something, but I don't know, it's just kind of boring. Obviously I knew going into the movie that Iroki, the previous Tofu ruler, would be returning and interacting with Kaguragi since she's in the show, and this was like a big part of the marketing. They were like, look, it's the previous ruler that Kaguragi killed. Like, they don't really exchange much dialogue with each other. Like, it's a very short like couple of scenes they have. I think it's just because I have the show interactions that this feels a little lackluster, but if she didn't appear in the show later on, I would be pretty satisfied with this just because it's pretty cool to see the previous ruler and to have her just yell at Kaguragi. It's just kind of looking back, it's whatever. But I did like that Kaguragi goes looking for Heracles, like that's just the first thing he does, and then he happens upon Iroki, so that's pretty cool. I was not expecting Himeno's parents to cameo though. I love that she ends up in the land of the dead and her first move is to go search for her dead parents. It's pretty sweet, and I really love like her interactions with them because like, she's happy to see them obviously, but there's no drawn out moment like, no, I want to stay with you guys, I can't leave you. She's just like, I know you're dead, I know I can't stay here, and I like my life now. I just wanted to check in and say goodbye. Incredibly badass line, good for her. Also, there's like a brief subplot where the retainers die so they can help the kings for like 5 seconds, and then they just get revived again and return to the surface. Literally makes no sense, but who cares? It's funny. The movie itself, there's some like funny lines of dialogue elsewhere as well, like the one moment when Reinil introduces himself and Gira's like, wow, you're still alive? And like 10 seconds ago he was told they were in the land of the dead. It's like, how did you forget that? Do you not know what being dead means? Speaking of which, Gira and Reinil are the main focus of the movie, and I thought they were pretty awesome. I like that the conflict of this is treated like Gira's last trial to becoming the king of Shugadam. Through his fight with Reinil, he realizes that the current thinking for Shugadam kings is kind of outdated, and because he was an orphan, which Devonica kind of reminds us of since they knew each other from the orphanage, he decides he wants to be a king that acknowledges the struggles of his people and wishes to erase all of it. And again, I think it's pretty cool. It's like the plot of the movie, because in the show we do get like a little moment where he decides what kind of king to become, but it's kind of nice that this whole little adventure heaven also gives him an idea of what kind of king to become. It's a shame the show never really follows through on that concept, but that's not the movie's fault. Devonica herself, you know, she's kind of a plot device, but she also has a bit of complexity, so it's not just her following what other people say. You can tell she's never 100% on board with Rhinel's plan because she doesn't want to die, but she like acknowledges he might be the only one who can save everyone. And I also thought her interactions with Gira were cute. I'm not sure how they want us to read that. Like, is it like a relationship thing? Is it just like a sisterly thing? I don't know. It was nice, and it makes sense. It was clever to include that in, because then that blossoms into him convincing her to join his side, because I mean, Gira's literally fighting for her. Rhinel is not. He's trying to kill her. But it all makes Rhinel an amazing movie villain. I think it's super cool to introduce the founding king of Shugadam and have him function as Gira's last trial, and I think it's cool he has a heroic motive to return to the surface and save Shugadam from big threats. Gira is just so stubborn that he gets in the way of this and ends up proving himself to be more worthy in the process. And since we're at the end of the show now and have the hindsight of the entire second half after this movie, it's pretty obvious that his dialogue to Gira is talking about Dugaded's arrival on Chikyu. He doesn't explicitly say there's a big alien god that I've been working for years and he's going to destroy everyone on the planet, but he's like, there are big threats out there. There's something very bad that's going to happen to Chikyu, and you might want to watch out for that. Then in the extended cut footage, he even explicitly addresses that Rackley's alive and there's a secret history of the Shugadam kings that he has to tell Gira, and then Dugaded is literally at the end of the movie to kill Rhinel. And then in the show itself, when Rhinel returns, Dugaded addresses that. He's like, oh, I should have killed you better. Like, I think that's what he says, which is like, that's not whatever. And then just having Rhinel return to the surface to fight Dugaded briefly does kind of fulfill the storyline of this movie. He got to return to the surface and protect Shugadam from greater threats. It ties everything together in a really nice way. I really liked it. It's really, really cool how this movie ties into the main show. Rhinel also has like a really cool voice. Like, they picked an actor who is insanely imposing just by speaking. So when he puts on this crazy armor made of dead people, it's pretty badass. I also love the general vibe the movie has. The King-Ohgers being in a green screen environment is not a big event. That's just the entire goddamn show. But for this, they're in environments that they're not trying to portray as real. It's the land of the dead. But it makes everything so much cooler, because now there's no uncanny valley like, oh, this looks like a real location, but you know it's not. No, these are clearly unnatural locations that do not exist. So it was awesome to see the creators go all out with that. There's only one long fight in the movie, but because of the environments and the fact Inferno plays over the whole thing, it really stands out and delivers this impact that I'm pretty sure they were going for, especially because it's at the end of the movie. I come out of the movie and the first thing I'm thinking of is, wow, that was actually a really cool fight, and it takes place entirely in a green void with weird Unreal Engine graphics around, but like it's a nice stylistic choice. Like, it's not just a weird hallway. They struck an incredible balance of being a fun summer movie and an impactful storyline with both of last year's movies. Be sure to check out my Geets movie review if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But for this movie, I think it's really great. Make sure to subscribe if you want to hear my thoughts on more King-Ohger. As I said, I'm getting ready to review the whole thing in a few days here, and you don't want to miss it, or my upcoming Super Sentai content. So I hope to see you next time.